And good morning. Welcome to the Old School podcast about the current American education system, all of its characteristics, its foibles, its traits, its issues, and God knows it has issues. Its problems, solutions, and so far as we know the solutions. Good morning here, Dr. Bourgeois.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Good to see you and hear you this morning.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm fine. Feel relaxed. Saturday morning, no worries, not a care in the world.
No sports though.
Yeah, I actually had to look up on my phone when the Super Bowl was because it seems like 2 weeks have passed or 3, but it's only been a few days.
Is it because you're trying to block it out?
Yeah. We're in the stages of grief. You know, you have denial or anger.
I got anger right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes until August. You know, realistically, I mean, they find ways to talk about football, you know, on these sports shows. But realistically, we don't see a ball or a tackle or anything until August.
It's probably better that way. As George Will said, that football is the combination of the two worst characteristics of American life: committee meetings that being punctuated by violence. So there you go. There's football.
There you go. The great George.
Now, typically, I would get out of football gratefully and run into the welcoming arms and nurturing bosom of baseball. But alas, it's not here. So
why isn't it exactly?
Labor dispute seems to be at the core.
You see how important baseball is. I didn't even know they were having that dispute or even holding a season this year.
Well, you don't exactly have your thumb on the pulse of American life, though.
No, you know, I do. I watch ESPN, you know, it's on the TV quite often when I'm sitting working, and no one has brought up baseball in about 4 months.
Do you listen to it with the sound off? Because I hear that's the best way to enjoy ESPN nowadays.
Oh yeah, no, whatever it is, you know, they haven't brought up baseball or labor or anything. So, and you know, I'm shocked that you even would know this.
A lot of people are talking about it just because your little enclave, your little circle of intelligentsia who finds baseball a bit beneath them, although you still gravitate towards the knuckle dragging, barbaric nature of football, the gentleman sport, America's pastime. Baseball somehow eludes you. Its allure eludes you.
Well, so they're gonna miss a whole season because of this dispute. They make a lot of money, you know, those players.
They all make money.
Well, they make you know, for the amount of work they do. You know, a lot of baseball is standing around, quite frankly, or sitting. Mm-hmm. You know, and so they're getting paid, you know, by standing and sitting, and once in a while there's a little action.
Well, wouldn't it be great if I could teach a history of baseball? Hello? Did the Zoom cut out? Did you freeze? I don't know what happened.
For comic effect. A history of baseball would be a great course. And why can't you do that, Ross?
There are many reasons why I can't do that.
Well, you could. I mean, let's face it. If you were given the opportunity, it would probably be the most entertaining course because you would most likely connect it to current events from the time period and connect it, you know, with your experience as a history teacher, as a knowledgeable person about baseball, and as one of your favorite things. It would be a wonderful course.
Well, now we're kind of venturing into what could be the topic of the day, and what we have alluded to in the last episode when we talked about perceptions of the teaching profession. Which could be found episode 38 everywhere where you get your podcast. But the idea about what drives people out of the profession and what is seemingly driving people out of the profession now. We talked about the idea that in the early days, and when I say early days, I'm talking about our early days.
When we were in school.
Yes, when we were in school, and then also in the beginning, nascent stages of our own teaching careers. There seemed to be more of an allowance for teachers to pursue their own interests insofar as they can kind of come up with the idea of a class, come up with a curriculum, introduce it, present it, get it approved. That seemed to be something, and this could be one aspect of why people are leaving the profession right now, is that there is not quite that level of creativity that's allowed because everything has to be about the tests.
Well, I don't think that current teachers, younger teachers, even can imagine the idea of writing a course from scratch. It's not, they would probably find a way to complain about it. Well, we have to be creative. What do we do? So I think we're talking about a problem for the older folks who are still in the profession. I can remember way back when I was actually in junior high, I took a course in sports. It was really a course, for statistics, but it was about, they used sports trivia as a way to get you to look at a lot of things numerically, and it was brilliant,
right,
because it was applied and interesting, and it was the best class you could have. It was the good old fashioned elective. I think the elective has gone the way of the dinosaur, and certainly taking advantage of a teacher's knowledge and experience and
interest.
Yeah. That's I think you make a good point. They're stuck in a box, teaching what's expected. It's tested, and then you go home and you do it again.
And I think you also hit on something, because you were talking about the demographics that we're likely talking about are the older crowd for two reasons. One, they remember when it used to be possible. And two, they have the most experience, perhaps the broader skill set to bring to bear on potentially a new subject, a new idea. But because there's so little wiggle room in kids' schedules now, for various reasons, in our neck of the woods, it has to do with pathways that inconceivably is identified in the 8th grade, that there's just simply no way to do it. I mean, there's no room in the schedule. You can't get it approved. You can get it approved, probably. You just couldn't get kids to sign up for it because they're so locked in on all these other courses.
And it would be most likely a regular class, and as far as weighting, so people, the better students would lose GPA points by taking your course in baseball history. It would affect their class ranking and which colleges they go to. You would have a domino effect by just offering that nice course.
Now, before we get into some of the other reasons why the great retirement is happening, have you ever envisioned, what would you have done if given the license to create a course? What would you have taught? I have a couple ideas, and I think most teachers may have a couple ideas, but I'm wondering if you did.
Well, I was given an opportunity once. I was teaching in an urban school, and the counselor approached me kind of at the very beginning of the school year. So this is late. And she said, why don't you create a course in music? Music appreciation. We'll have these kids come in, and you can, and so I did it, and it was basically music, listening, and then eventually teaching them some of the tools. But it was in a classroom setting, not in a music room. And we had one class period where I played a little piece by Vivaldi, and they were supposed to listen. Then we were going to talk about what they heard, and they started, misbehaving and talking during the actual first time I played a little clip, and the conversation was stupid, and it was more about classroom management, and I didn't have their attention. That was earlier in my career. And so I marched down to the counselor. I said, this is a bad idea. I'm not doing it. And she said, well, wait a minute. Don't you picture yourself as this idealistic teacher going into an urban place and, teaching the music, and I think that
was stand and deliver.
Kind of between that and Mr. Holland's Opus. And I said, there's a difference between teaching band to people who want to be in the band it just turned out to be students who needed to be somewhere. So that was a bad example, but I guess, theoretically, let's hear yours and then I'll follow you.
Well, history of baseball was kind of a joke. It's a bit too esoteric, a bit too elevated intellectually for the average run-of-the-mill high school student. It would be
Sounds,
foolish to even present it.
it's really insulting, you know. To a lot of people, I feel uncomfortable with what you just said. As I really think it could be a great course, and you would frame it so it was engaging to them.
I think so. I mean, I was something I just, I just threw it out as a lark just a few
Oh,
minutes ago. But as far as
okay.
classes that I actually thought about at the time,
Yeah.
I wanted to do a history of Southeast Asia. Why are you laughing for?
Oh,
What's
you
wrong with
talk
you?
about talk about your audience. I think you'd do better with the baseball idea.
The question was, had I ever considered creating my own class?
Well, it would be your own class. You'd be teaching, and there'd be no students.
Damn it, Bourgeois. This is serious stuff. That's an interesting part of the world.
Okay, well, make your case. What's your syllabus? What are you going to teach in that course?
Well, that's just the beauty. I mean, it could be so many things to so
You
many people.
make it up as you go.
Well, no, I'd have a plan. So I had the idea of Southeast Asia, or you can even broaden it out to East Asia in general. But another idea I had was to teach history through music. Bring music as kind of like the barometer of societal moods and attitudes. That would make a great course. I did a training at the University of North Texas, which is a school that's renowned for its jazz department. And I once sat in a training room for 3 hours listening to a guy present U.S. history through jazz. It was one of the most beautiful 3 hours I have ever spent in my life. And I thought this would make a great class. Now, the problem is jazz, like baseball, is an acquired taste, and I think perhaps too niche of an immediate audience to work. But there you go. I mean, those were just a couple of the ideas that I had.
Well, I certainly can't shoot that idea down. As a jazz player myself, I mean, your students would get a nice break from hearing you talk. Sit and listen to a little jazz in the background.
Jackass, you are. What's wrong with you?
And when they're doing their work individually, you little book work, you play a little Bill Evans in the background, and
yes.
No, I think you should be able to teach the class. I think that's what we're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Is why can't teachers create something? I mean, I would have liked to teach philosophy to high school kids, and I did it outside of school as a club, and it was well intended. And we read some serious things and discussed them, and that's all it was.
Right.
The other thing that would have been interesting would be to teach a course in film appreciation, basically through my own prism, meaning I show them what I want them to see, and we talk about it and expand their worlds and make me really happy. So I think those would be the two areas that I would have done that in a minute, and probably enjoyed them more than teaching German for a lot of reasons.
Because there are a lot of people, because we've joked about this before, the fact that every school has, or perhaps had, because it's not quite so prevalent today, every school had that one guy that did nothing but show movies. And usually it was a history teacher under the guise of teaching history. They would just show movies all the time. So you would try to legitimize the practice by creating something more elevated.
Well, sure, they'd be serious movies. You wouldn't be
Dinner for One.
Well, yeah, something like that. But you wouldn't be playing something for math class because it has a number in the title or something. I mean, that's just kind of getting away from time. But having a real discussion, maybe involving the students where they lead discussions and prepare questions and connect it to the other films that you would show, and ideally there's some reading involved as well. But it would be like a college course, where college professors do have some flexibility. I mean, that may be a big difference, but they can pretty much write their courses, and they can connect it to whatever areas are personally interesting, and that way they lean on their strengths. And I think teachers today are just forced to teach something. The creativity is in the delivery, it's in the methodology, but certainly not in the content.
Right. And I think because of that kind of rather constrictive nature, I do think that talented people find themselves boxed in and unable to do what they want to do as far as or what they're capable of doing, and it does seem like for a lot of different reasons and because of a lot of different things that there's some sort of malevolent force in the universe that's turning this profession into something that can be done by trained monkeys, and that, and if there is no expertise that's required at some point, because all you got to do is teach to the test. Well, we were talking last week about the fact that, one of the issues that teachers have, or even though it's a rather capricious complaint, it has to do with pay. I think the pay is bad now. Wait till it gets to the point where we're nothing more than a teacher test prep center,
Well, your competitor as a history teacher or an AP teacher is video. I mean, there are so many useful videos now to prepare for AP history, whatever history it is. It's kind of a flipped classroom, but it doesn't flip to an actual lesson, just the initial part. But students can get all kinds of resources, and they're not reading. We've talked about history being a reading subject, but I would bet that it's also a viewing subject for a good portion of students. And so between that and the online platforms for assessment and content, I think the teachers who are have had this foray into online instruction during COVID are kind of looking at their replacements to some extent.
Well, I don't want to besmirch too much the folks that are doing various videos, because I'm sure that behind those videos are some very well-intentioned, smart people when it comes to history.
You bet.
The problem is that a lot of those things are done with an entertainment paradigm, not necessarily an educational one, because they are trying to sell it. They are trying to get it out there. They are trying to get people to view it, to like it, to share it, to, whatever the case may be. And so I've always told students, I said, the videos are nice. It's kind of like a generic recap, a surface level recap. But the problem is it changes the dynamic. And it's the same problem that we have when I get a kid that comes into my class and he struggles, and his parents tell me he watched the History Channel all the time. He loves history. And trying to explain to parents that you liking the History Channel has nothing to do with whether you're good at history or whether you would be successful in an advanced level history class. And so when kids go to the video, the problem is it changes their approach from what it should be to what often it is. And one of the reasons why kids don't remember crap, and that's why late night talk show hosts will do bits where they send some Yahoo intern out to the streets to ask Americans questions about American history, And of course, they never roll tape on the guy who gets it right. They just roll tape on the Yahoos that get it wrong. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's and that can be frustrating. Math and science gets a lot of love nowadays. But I think from a history humanities standpoint, it can be devastating.
So all of this connecting to teachers potentially leaving, I think we're maybe inventing a reason. There are a lot of reasons that teachers are leaving now, and they're overworked and they're dealing with really difficult conditions and stress. But we are, the two of us, purists in a way. That maybe this issue bothers us and not other people. I'd be interested in what some of your current colleagues would think about it if they wish that they could teach a course, based upon their interests.
Well, we think about other things. You talk about the idea that teachers are buried in work right now, and a lot of it, of course, is tied into current circumstances. But for me, it's at least my attitude about it. What profession isn't pushing their workers to the maximum because of having to adjust to or adapt to conditions created by COVID and any other tangential element associated with COVID. We're all going through the crap, is my job worse than a nurse? Is my job worse than a doctor? No. But, is it worse? Is it worse than others? Sure. But, I remember, stick with me here. I remember when my daughter was about to be born, and we have a very lovely, wonderful colleague in Germany. She's a communist, but we love her.
Come on.
And so I remember asking her, I said, because she had a couple of kids, and they were grown at the time that my daughter was about to be born. And I asked her, I said, do you have any advice here on the eve of the birth of my daughter? And she basically said, we all go through our own crap. You're going to have to figure it out. I can't advise you. I mean, because what you go through is going to be very different than what I go through. No one can really advise you. And so anytime I hear people, complain about what COVID has done to education, I would agree with them. But at the same time, I would also, especially if they use it as a reasoning for leaving the profession. But I would ask you, what profession has not gone through seismic changes and has demanded more of the practitioners of said occupation as a result of what's happened over the last 2 years? I just don't think we're that different.
I think a lot of jobs have gotten simpler because the light went on and people can work from home. And in some ways it's more efficient because there are fewer distractions. And I'd like to see some research on productivity, but, or well-being. I can imagine a lot of people are more happy working at home. I'm not sure where these teachers are going. My guess is that they've had it and they're just leaving, maybe without another position.
Or they're starting a podcast.
Yeah. Let's do a podcast. Let's start a band. Let's get a band together. That used to be
the podcast is the modern incarnation of the band.
I think so. We can say there's no money in it, but there could be. If we have enough retired teachers who say, "Oh, we need to listen to this." The teacher that you mentioned. You called her a communist, and she's a pessimist as well. But I would join her in that. You never know, and everything will surprise you.
And so that's why I hear what people say when they say, "Oh, this is just too much," or whatever the case may be. I just don't know if I take it as a kind of a serious. I mean, I think that they would have quit any job because of the demands of COVID. And again, that does not negate the legitimacy of that reason, but it's just simply something that a lot of people are going through, and some people are going through a lot worse of it. So, there's that element of it. Do you think teaching is harder? I mean, outside of COVID and everything like that, if you look at education prior to March 2020. Mm-hmm. Do you think teaching is harder than it was? Because we just got finished talking about the fact that it's actually expecting less of us intellectually and creatively in a creative sense.
I think it's teaching is a constant. I've probably said this before, but just putting yourself not only in front of a class, but in a room of students at any age, honestly, takes your life force, your energy, and you give it to them. And so it has a cumulative effect. It's a type of stress that unless you've been in that room, it's hard to imagine. You learn to deal with it. You learn to be successful and kind of make it your friend. But you could be sitting at your desk while they're taking a test, or you could be giving a lecture, or they could be doing group work. It doesn't matter. The level of stress is actually the same because the students are individuals doing things and often not what you want, or they're not following there's never like this neutral space where you're sitting in a room and there's no equilibrium. So it's a constant stress. The other side of it is there's this beautiful regularity of the calendar as you look forward to the weekend, to the holidays, grading, and so you learn to become part of that and the rhythms of teaching. But I think the profession is inherently challenging. But I would say that people are leaving now who are maybe able to retire and saying, well, I'm able to retire. Let's go ahead and do it.
So you think about the idea of people who are trying to think of what I want to say here, but you think about people that are leaving. I think the people who are retiring early, maybe they just feel like they don't have to deal with this anymore, and so they're not going to deal with it anymore. Yeah. But as far as the younger people go, the younger people are going to, I mean, you hate to kind of put it down as like millennial stuff, but are these people really equipped to handle a tough job, to handle something where it requires a lot of them? Is that something that's really, is that something that we see with the younger crowd? Or, I don't know. With the older crowd, yes, maybe they're just sitting there thinking to themselves, I can retire, so I want to retire.
That's a complicated question. The younger teachers, are they going to push through something like this? I think I don't really have any answer to that. I've worked with people from that generation who I've supervised and so forth, and their work ethic is it's different, because right. they can be very efficient with time, but also they value their own time and are good at putting up boundaries. And so they're healthier and happier and protect their time. Whereas, we were of the generation where we would put in time on our own, grading papers all weekend, get there early. And so I think it is a different generation, but I don't know if the profession is more or less appealing for young people. I think we've addressed a lot of the issues. So I guess that's not a real complete answer.
I don't think you can take into account anything that exists before, that has always existed in teaching.
Right.
That's why I don't buy the pay argument. That's why I don't buy the society. We talked about this last week, the fact that society as a whole doesn't really appreciate teachers. I don't think you can take that as a legitimate reason why people quit, because it either isn't, or the person was delusional about what they thought the profession was going to be before they got into it, because that aspect of it really hasn't changed. So I think there are elements to why people quit that have always been a part of education. And so it's dumbfounding when people say, well, I wasn't making enough money. What did you think you were going to?
I did. I got into teaching for the money, and I was misinformed. It seemed like at the time, there was it was great to get a paycheck of any kind, but I think that what catches teachers off guard is when it's the increase in their pay is so incremental. And so you don't get that boost being in any profession where you're there for 5 years and suddenly you're making double the money and have these advancement. There's not the advancement opportunities. So it's complex, but I think when we look at the numbers and the dust settles, there is going to be there will be a higher attrition rate, and it needs to be broken down. Are these young teachers? Are they retiring teachers? I don't know.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, I think people do get smacked in the face by the reality of the job, and then that calls into question how teachers are being trained. Are they being trained to understand the realities of the position? Is that even possible in a university setting? I know most teacher programs include a semester of student teaching, but to some extent, that's a slightly curated experience.
Interesting.
By the master teacher in the classroom. So are they truly understanding what they're walking into by the time they get the job, their first job? So I've mentioned before that I have a former student who is currently in her very first semester as a school teacher. And I remember her now boss calling me after he had interviewed her and saying, is she going to be all right in the classroom, in your opinion? And I said, yes, I think she's going to be great. She's got that personality to be able to roll with things. Is she going to struggle? Well, hell yes. I mean, we all struggled in our first years as teachers. And so the question is not whether she's going to struggle or not. The question is, one, does she have support? Two, does she have a personality that is not easily dissuaded from things? I mean, does she have stick-to-itiveness, as it were? And she certainly has that. So then the question then becomes, to what extent is she prepared for the task? And again, it goes back to the idea of student teaching. And you have to ask yourself, if they do that survey and they find out, what is the demographics of the teachers who are leaving? If they are under 5 years, there has to be a serious question about teacher training. How well is it preparing aspiring teachers for the job?
The problem with this feels like another episode, but the problem I see with student teaching is that you don't get to close the door, and be in a room with students and create your own relationships. There's no time, and it's also illegal because they're not certified and they can't supervise students. They have to have somebody, a certified teacher in the room at all times. But so you're getting a taste of it. But I think a student teacher does get the benefit of a mentor who can give them some inside information. And I think if you're giving, and I'm sure from you, you're going to give the hard lessons. Say this is not going to be easy. This is not TV, right?
Right. Well, yes. And this is, and you do get that experience, and and I'm also not one to give out unsolicited advice, and so I don't tend to just put forth things out there. I mean, I'm not saying I've never done it, but I mean, with students who are considering teaching, they'll have to directly ask me what I think before I will tell them what I think. But I don't know. It's one aspect that I worry about, and I can't help but think it might be one reason why folks are leaving. Can you imagine any other reason beyond the usual suspects?
Oh yeah. I mean, I do study teachers and leaving, and this is typical for any job. People don't leave jobs; they leave managers. Right. And so the whoever is their direct supervisor has it's either a controlling relationship or they're supporting their autonomy. They're giving feedback that's informational and helpful. So that leader makes a huge difference. They need to have some relationships and not be isolated. And usually a department takes care of that, but not always. And then they need training ongoing, in these areas that we bring up every week, because for growth, but also just survival. If I give a survey on what teachers need, they often say, well, managing student behavior. If you're getting that, and maybe you don't get a lot of that actually in college, and so there are things that you learn on the job, but I think that there are a lot of ways to help teachers stay, but probably the leadership is one that we haven't talked enough about.
Well, the problem is I don't know. I'm trying to think about. It's more than just the principal,
right? It's the leadership team. It's and your department head, whatever it is. But there are people who have a supervisory role.
So it's the department chair, it's vice principals, associate principals. It's the people that run. Well, I don't run anything. I'm just the ice cream man coming through.
No, it's those people who are up front when you're sitting through meetings and wandering around.
I think I have a good situation here, but I also know that it's not something that is widely seen. Because evidenced by the fact that, I mean, how many administrative teams that you've had in your career that you thought were good?
Oh, I could never say that. Not at all. There's always been, at least someone in that group that I very much admired. And
Right.
doesn't matter. But no, I've had some really great leaders and some really poor leaders, but I learned from both of them.
Yeah.
And even that's just too general. Those leaders have strengths and weaknesses, so they have certain areas, even the bad ones, that they're really good at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice political answer for you. But no,
So is that simply another thing that teachers point to as why they're leaving, but it's not a legitimate one, or it's one that is nothing different in education than compared to any other profession?
I think you're onto it. I mean, teachers have this perception that the classroom is theirs and they can close the door, and things that infiltrate that room, like testing and all these things where you're kind of feeling like you're micromanaged. That's true with any position. It's called working, but good leadership would build confidence and also give the impression that these are professionals. And I think that's the bigger issue, the professionalism of the profession of teaching. Sometimes that seems to be lacking.
Well, I think I think what would be interesting would be to do perhaps a podcast just on the nature of leadership. And we have talked about it in the context of a plethora of episodes, but I don't think we've given it its due in regards to its own episode. And perhaps that might be something we should tackle soon, because I think it does go to how teachers feel about their school, how teachers feel about their job, how teachers feel about their relationship with their students. And because it is at the center of all of that, perhaps it deserves its own episode.
I'd be up for that. I mean, there are teachers who survive lots of regimes, and they're, they in some ways don't really care. Just keep out of my business and let me do my thing.
Right.
But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I think we would solve problems if we just let teachers teach at least one class, in an area that they would like.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a great question on job interviews. You're being interviewed to teach, math, algebra 1, and what would you teach outside of math if you could?
Mm-hmm.
And they may not know how to answer that. But
they weren't prepped with that question at the College of Education that they were graduating from. No, so,
but I think it would be a good one, and I don't think it's realistic, at least in traditional public schools anymore.
Right.
But maybe the pendulum will swing. It has done that a couple of times in our careers.
And the much maligned charter schools, private schools, those could be some of the last bastions of perhaps an older system that allowed for a lot more creativity, allowed for a lot more ownership over what people do in the classroom. Not all, of course, charter schools, private schools fall into this realm, but it does seem like it's gone the way of the dodo in public schools.
Yeah, and I would say that, well, I make most of my money from private schools and particularly charter schools, and so they're definitely not maligned by me. I think you're right. It can be innovative. There's more flexibility,
right,
and the potential to teach, to really teach, and that's what we're kind of getting at.
Well, it looks like we got ourselves set up for the next few weeks, some possible topics, and I'm sure we're going to have an elementary school teacher here on pretty soon, so it's only a matter of time. But we have promising episodes ahead.
Oh boy, what a good tease that was! And we could get a sitting principal, who could put us in our place.
There you go.
See,
potentially with regards to leadership. I mean, it would be interesting to kind of hear that dynamic from that side of the equation, instead of us just waxing philosophically about what we think it should be done. So
yeah, have them listen to our episode about leadership and then bring them on to pick us apart.
It's just like, what the hell are you people talking about?
I'd love someone to do that, just to come on and take us to task. It would be fun.
And we deserve it too, to be honest.
I agree. No, we're out of our expertise in about half of what we say.
Well, it's never stopped anyone else, so we're going to press on.
I agree.
All right. Well, into the void of lack of sports, lack of enjoyment, the joie de vivre. We say adieu to Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Auf Wiedersehen, auf Wiederhören, Herr Miller.